if you can get the right atmosphere amongst your staff, you're certainly on a good start.
Today I'm chatting with David Dunn, a serial restaurateur who owns two of the most exciting and hottest restaurants in Sligo. Knox, which is an all-day cafe eatery, and also he's the owner of Flipside, a really exciting gourmet burger joint that serves some of the best burgers in Ireland. If you haven't already done so, click the subscribe button to get brand new episodes every single week directly to your feed. David, golfer, corporate finance, and now restaurant owner. Tell me. Let's go back to the beginning. Tell me about how all that came about.
Yeah, well, I suppose finishing up school, I started into banking, financial services for 16, 17 years. Lived 12, 13 years in Dublin, and ended up back in Sligo, my hometown. And I was working for a financial services company that were closing down, and was faced with redundancy back in 2014. And I had a decision to make. I had whether I was going to continue on in that world, which might have meant going back to Dublin or relocating somewhere else, or really to set up my own business. And it was something that was always inside of me, that I wanted to own my own business, a food business preferably, and a food or drinks business. And I just had it in me, I suppose, to do this. And the redundancy really kind of was the spur for me to take a complete career change. And that was the little impetus that I needed, really. I signed up to Ballymaloe Cookery School in September 14. Did the 12 weeks down there as kind of just to see whether it was for me, or whether this was the right move for me. And anyone who spent any time down in Ballymaloe will realize that 12 weeks down there, you're just totally submersed in the whole world of quality food and produce. And I was obsessed then with it, and it went from there.
Very good. And before, sorry, David, couldn't. But before, and I want to talk a lot about that restaurant that we're about to talk about. But let's just go for a second to the finance background, right? I suppose, like, it seems to me like a great background to have when it comes to opening a business, right, and a restaurant. So can you talk to me a little bit about kind of, I suppose, what you took from that background to opening your own place?
Yeah, like it was so helpful, because I'd spent so many years looking at clients coming to me with proposals, business plans. I was financing a lot of deals over the years in that sector. So I knew that, the background, I knew the finances side of things and what I needed to achieve for the business to succeed. So there's a lot of people that go into the food business without that kind of financial knowledge, and it's so crucial, because it's such a difficult business. We're working off such tight margins, and if you don't go into it, properly prepared with a business plan, with a concept that will succeed, you will fail. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. So it helped immeasurably. It also helped for me, because I was coming back I was looking to open in Sligo in 2015, at a time when there wasn't a whole lot of choice. As a provincial town, we're always a few years behind Dublin, and I felt there was so much opportunity in Sligo at the time. So as a business proposal, I was pretty confident that we had a good chance of succeeding as well. So the background is so helpful. I'd be constantly looking at margins. Can we buy in our products cheaper? Just the boring stuff that a lot of people don't like.
Yeah, very good. And so let's get into it. So you then opened what is now Knox in Sligo.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that process of opening your place.
Yeah. We were looking at the time. I was opening up with a business partner, the two of us, and we were looking at um, uh, an ideal location, looking for a unit somewhere around the town, and that took a number of months because they're short supply. I eventually ended up buying a old insurance offices, which were on the main street, Collins Street in Sligo, and we had to go through a whole refurb. We had to go through the planning process. We had to put in a kitchen, so it was quite tricky in terms of starting on that basis. Um, and it certainly was a learning curve in terms of uh, knowing what to do, in that side of things. So once the planning came through, we were working on the design and the decor and what we wanted, what kind of feel we wanted of the premises. We used Pinterest a lot, got a lot of ideas from the interest idea, and we had a really good carpenter who was able to do, any ideas we wanted, he would be able to make them. So we kind of went with the kind of a recycled feel to the premises. We used old scaffolding boards that were being thrown out. We were using old pallets we used on the wall. So that was the kind of feel we went for, and we took it from there. Yeah.
Where did that come from then? Like, I suppose, like, was it always going to be that concept, or was there any other place that you looked at and you said, that you kind of modeled it off, or?
I didn't really model it off any one place in particular. I always had a soft spot for the kind of daytime brunchy type places that you'd see in Dublin or any of the large urban centres around Europe. And that was the kind of feel that I wanted. I wanted good music. I wanted somewhere you could relax and possibly have a coffee in the morning and then develop that into kind of a brunch type offering. So I wanted, I think music and atmosphere is so important in developing a place. So that was kind of the feel that we kind of went for and kept that through.
Yeah, and you spent years in Dublin, you were saying, and
Mm.
you said, you like the look of some of the places there. Like, was it I suppose, was it is it a big difference, right, taking somewhere in Dublin, that works in Dublin and then taking into Sligo? Like, did you find that you kind of had to adapt stuff slightly, or what's the kind of environment like in Sligo?
Yeah, I think at the time, um, I felt in 2015 there wasn't a huge amount of choice in Sligo, and there were still a little bit in the traditional cafe style, or
Yeah,
even your offering was pretty the basic traditional fry, or there was nothing too inventive or different going on, with the exception of one or two places. And I just felt my time in Dublin, where you go every weekend, you find somewhere different, something,
yeah,
whether it be Eastern European or different styles, really on your doorstep. And um, I wanted to bring something a little bit different, but not too different, if you get me, because it
yes,
just
yeah,
felt if you're going too far out there, you're going to lose the general population. And Sligo is a small enough town, so you need to be kind of uh, something that fits all. So we were conscious that we would have a menu that was a little bit edgier at the time, but that people could easily understand. So we weren't going to throw in dishes that people just didn't have a clue what they were. So
yeah, yeah.
I don't think you can go too far out there when you're dealing in kind of provincial towns around the town.
Yeah, and did you get it right from the beginning, or like
Uh,
did you have to change a lot?
we had a great start. There was no question about that. And I think with any food business, if you can get a good start, it is just brilliant. It's so important. And we did get it. We initially were just open daytime, and weekend brunch on Saturday and Sunday was absolutely hammered busy. So you make mistakes along the way, but there was nothing major. We didn't make any major mistakes, I don't think. The only major mistake we made was that the kitchen wasn't big enough. So after about 2 weeks, we actually had to extend out the back, and we had to develop it. Yeah, it was just, when you're opening up a business, you don't know how it's going to go. And
Yeah.
initially, our plans were maybe it might have been a 2-chef operation, and we might sell some sandwich, or you just weren't sure the volumes. And we found out very, very quickly that we needed more space, because a third chef would have to be working, and we'd need a kitchen porter. So we had to develop. About 2 weeks later, we had to close. 3 weeks later, we closed for a quick renovation job to extend out the back. So that was great. It was great for us. It was great confidence builder, I suppose, at that stage. But we had a fantastic start. Yeah.
Very good. And without without going too much into this, because I don't want this this podcast to be kind of too down low and COVID-esque. But I suppose going back to kind of March of 2020, was that talk to me a little bit about what was going through your head at that point, and was that the kind of lowest that you've had in business so far with Knox?
Yeah. I think for anyone in the food or hospitality business, this COVID has been the toughest anyone has encountered, because we didn't really know what was ahead of us. So I remember back in March, we were looking at there was a certain amount of fear that it was coming in, the fear of the unknown. We didn't know what was ahead of us. And I could sense there was a nervousness in the air, certainly around the town. We were one of the first to close. Sometimes it's like a domino effect. If one closes, the rest kind of follow, because there was no instructions from the government at that time. It was really left up to the businesses whether they would close themselves or not. So you are faced with really difficult questions, and to me, my gut told me just to close. It just didn't feel right at the time, and we closed. We were, I'd say, one of the first to close, definitely in Sligo, and many followed. And when something's just in your gut, you just know it's the right decision you made. And whilst some other businesses continued on for a few weeks more, we were quite happy with what we had done. But yeah, there's no doubt the last almost a year now of opening, closing, not really knowing. We're in a really unusual. We've been faced with so many unusual scenarios, and not knowing what the right answer is, because you just don't really know what's ahead of you. But you just have to be able to adapt. You need to be able to move quickly, and you have to follow your gut a lot of the time if it feels right or feels wrong. Yeah.
Very good, interesting. And talking about that kind of not knowing what's next, I suppose has the kind of the model for your business changed going forward, kind of post COVID?
Yeah, like it's certainly a very interesting what's going to happen with the market. During this COVID, we're operating as a takeaway on a Thursday, Friday, and a Saturday night, and that was something we never would have done. We probably wouldn't have even offered kind of boxed food, or
Yeah.
and we've certainly had to adapt. And I can see some businesses will continue with that option, and it's probably something that we would look at trying to continue as well. I'm also an owner of Flipside, which is a burger joint here in Sligo, and the takeaway aspect of that has been phenomenally busy for us. And certainly on Flipside, we'd be considering, the takeaway piece more so than we ever would have before as well. So it's definitely food for thought. I think the term fast casual, or whatever you want to call it, is certainly in to stay for the foreseeable. And we definitely would be thinking that way in Knox in terms of going forward.
Yeah, nice. And talk to me a little bit about Flipside Day, because
Yeah.
I follow you on Instagram, and it looks really they look unreal. And actually, I was someone told me before the first time I ever heard of Flipside, someone told me the best burger in Galway, or sorry, in Ireland is Flipside. And
Nice.
he's a man that loves a burger. So talk to me a little bit about kind of I suppose the success of that. What would you put the success of that down to?
Well, it came back to a unit coming up in 2018, and in a decent, good location in Sligo. My manager at the time was looking to go out on his own. Paul Brennan is his name, and he was working with me in Knox, and I could sense that he was looking to make the next step. And the unit came up, and I always had, even before I opened Knox, I wanted the concept of a burger joint in Sligo. Never really followed it through on the Knox offering, but it was always something that I felt would go well if we could get locally sourced burgers. And it was a trend. It was more than a fad. It was a trend over in the UK.
Yeah,
We both went over to London, went over to Shoreditch, and tried out all their best offerings. And it was something that was there to stay. It wasn't a in one year and out the next. It was, it has developed into a proper market over there. So I felt it was something that we could latch onto. And Paul is a little bit younger than me, and we get on great. And he runs it, day to day. I'm just kind of in the background. My focus of attentions is more on Knox, but between us we make a good team, and he's been able to drive that business forward on the social media side,
yeah,
getting the younger generation out. But it was very important for us that we were developing a quality product, and we developed the actual burgers with the local butcher, and we try and put as best quality into the burger as possible, and you know the difference. There's no
yeah.
doubt.
I'd love to kind of get the kind of your customer base for Flipside, because like there's I would imagine, just looking at that kind of concept, and certainly where you're located in Sligo, be heavily student centric, right? And
Yeah,
obviously the colleges are closed now. So what
yeah.
does that customer base look like, and how has that kind of been affected?
Yeah, like definitely the student, it would have a strong student base and a younger generation. But we have a lot of students that are in Sligo that are operating from home. Students that might have been in UCD or UCG, and they're in their house in Sligo. So it definitely is more targeted, I suppose, to the younger generation in terms of our social media and whatever. But as I have discovered in the last number of years, a burger is just so popular. As it doesn't matter what age you are, and
Yeah,
we find it when Flipside is open. It is absolutely the family friendly type option. We have a lot of families come in because sometimes the kid dictates where they can go to eat, and
yes,
if
yeah.
if the kid likes the burger or likes the chicken nuggets or whatever, the family go there. So we definitely benefit from young families coming, and we have all ages coming to Flipside. My dad is 87, and he loves burgers, and so you get it from all over. So I think when you're operating in somewhere like Sligo, and you're not in an urban centre like Dublin, you do have to try and capture as much of the audience as possible. Uh, I don't think you can open up something in a town and try and just target one specific
Yes.
target market in particular, because it's too small. You're just not going to attract enough business. So definitely the burger is here to stay.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, actually, because like I would often with startups I work with kind of look at kind of being I suppose that old kind of adage of not being all things to everybody, or you try to become all things to everybody, you become nothing to anyone. So that's one area that I often look at with restaurants. But in a city like Galway, it's vitally important, right? Because there's so much competition and you need to stand out. But I think that's a really good point about some more urban towns like Sligo kind of having a larger offering is important.
Yeah. I think in both places, in both Knox and Flipside, we've tried to keep the menu as tight as possible. When I say you don't want something that's, you go into some restaurants and there might be pizzas and there might be steaks and there might be everything on it.
Yeah.
So I do think you need to have a specific focus, but certainly within that menu, you should have something that will suit different palates. I get nervous when I see a menu that's 4 pages long, or it's just not.
Yeah, for sure. And right on that point, I suppose I'd love to get your opinion on, and this is probably a kind of a tricky enough question, but it's one that I probably ask all my guests, which is the running a restaurant, right? Running a successful restaurant. If you were to give even one, like let's say 3, or even just one kind of fundamental key that it takes to run a successful place, what would that be?
Just one. I would probably say teamwork. I think no one person can run a restaurant, and without teamwork, you would be nowhere. You just can't do it. So teamwork, as in front of house, liaising with the kitchen staff, everyone working on the same page. I think that is critical. You can't have 2 different teams working against each other, or because the customer will hear it or see it. And I think if you can get the right atmosphere amongst your staff, you're certainly on a good start. I think good service you can get away with a lot with good service. But if you put up the best food, best plated dish, and the service is terrible, that person's going to leave the place thinking, I'm not going back there. So I think teamwork is critical. Like any football team, like any golf team, no matter what, I think without the proper communication and willing to work together, I think it's critical.
That's great, and that's actually something I hear a lot. A lot of owners, business owners I talk to, probably even specifically restaurant owners, would say that their biggest the most important thing is staff, yet, and their biggest problem is staff. I wonder and obviously we have the whole chef shortage and all that the last couple of years. But is that something that you like? Is that something you struggle with a little bit? Is getting staff?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. We're fortunate enough we generally are able to keep our staff, and I think that's down to if you create a decent atmosphere in the workplace. I think your chances of staff retention increase immeasurably. So we always try and generate a positive working environment so that you don't have chefs moving every 6 months, or front of house staff moving, because it is a transient market. So we certainly work on that to try and ensure our staff are happy. But there is a definite problem on the chef side, no question. Less and less are kind of coming through the system. So once you have a good one, you try and keep them as best you can. But it's a tricky market, no doubt about that.
Yeah, 100%. And let's finish up on this one, David. Your growth plan for the future. What's it look like?
Well, we've just prior to COVID, I bought the unit beside us in Knox, the adjacent unit. So our plans were to move in or to extend into there last year, but hopefully we'll be doing that this year. So we'll increase our offering through that kind of increase of space, and probably develop a kind of a wine bar feel, particularly for the nighttime business. So in Knox, we're very busy Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights. We have a tapas service, which is really popular. But we're very tight on space. So I think the increased space next year, which we develop in next door and have a kind of a pre-drinks, post-drinks kind of area, will take less pressure off the customer in terms of seating, and we can develop that side of the business. So for us, it would be extension into next door. No question.
Very good. It's good. It's good to hear that expansion is kind of on the cards, anyways. And
Yeah.
another one there for you. I suppose I always find this maybe it's more of a personal question I like to ask guests, but is there any? I suppose I'm very much with my job looking at new concepts and stuff like that. Is there any concept that you like to look over, or even like I suppose is there any restaurant out there that you've ever looked at that you kind of said, "Feck, you know, I wish I had done that," you know?
Yeah. I There's so many ones at the moment. I suppose the fast casual concept is something that I'm more interested in.
Okay.
I think there is a movement away from fine dining. It's not for me really, or that whole offering. Um, Somewhere like in not in Sligo, but you see these kind of cool pizzerias that are opening up.
Yeah.
I think of Pie Pizza up in Dublin, or these kind of places, and you think that is a good model as well, in terms of operating. I think so many people have ordered or bought uni pizzas over the COVID in the last
Yeah.
12 months. So I do think there's always a place for that. Um, but at the end of the day, I think it's just if you can create a decent atmosphere in the place. I think music is so important and soon forgotten. But if you can make a kind of a fun place and introduce things like that, I think it's good. So I'm not big into the fads or the things that are coming and going, and because they will come and go. But I think you see these quality pizzeria places.
Yeah.
I think it's good market.
Excellent, excellent. That's really good. Okay, sorry, last one now because we do have to wrap it up. But
Yeah.
the idea of scalability, right? And just looking at your both your restaurants, there's Flipside and Knox. Can you talk to me a little bit about kind of like was that something that when you opened up both of them that was in your mind, the idea of scaling them? Because I would look at somewhere, and please correct me now if I'm wrong, but I would look at somewhere like Knox and then Flipside, and I'd love to get your insight in this. Like, is one of them more scalable than the other?
Well, definitely, yeah. I definitely would see Flipside as something that is scalable and something that we could repeat somewhere else. There's no doubt, and that was in our mind with Flipside. Um, Knox is more of a I'm more personally attached to Knox, and it's not something that is scalable really. I don't think I could replicate it somewhere else
Okay.
without being there. I just have that kind of connection with Knox. So with Flipside, I think when we went into it, we did think, if we can develop this concept, it is something that we could develop elsewhere, because essentially we're focusing in on the burger, the chips, and that is something that we could replicate in another unit. Whether we do that or not,
Yeah.
that's for another day's work. But it's definitely, yeah, it's a fair point, and definitely one is definitely way more scalable than the other.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not, you see some businesses when they try and increase to 2 and 3 units, it's maybe not the best thing to do either. So it's something we'll be considering in the future, no doubt.
Excellent. Right.
Yeah.
Very last one, I promise.
Yeah.
A town like Sligo, right? Looking at Flipside, or just any kind of concept at all, but is there a I suppose what I'm trying to get at here is, could you have 2 Flipsides in Sligo, or is it just too small for something like that, or how do you see that?
It'd be too small for two similar units. Yeah, no, it would be.
Yeah.
No, it definitely would be. I don't know if there's any business that's kind of been big enough to do two different businesses. I think something like Flipside we'd consider post COVID. The deliveries and the takeaway option has been so strong that we may need to split the two. There may be a Flipside takeaway going forward, but with the sit down in our original unit. I don't think we could. It's very hard for a business to do takeaway and sit down, in the same premises. So that would be the only way I could see, where you're splitting the two different offerings into two different units. But you see so many different things going on around Europe and the rest of the world in terms of these dark kitchens and stuff, and the progress of takeaway food, and the idea that you and I and two other guys could take over a kitchen in an industrial estate and set up 4 different takeaways. It's a really.
Sorry, David, I'm after losing you there. Sorry about that. No, work away, David. Yeah.
No, I was just saying it was interesting that these the dark kitchen idea where you could have 4 different operators operating under the one roof and using Deliveroo or a delivery service. It can be I can see that being such a cost-effective way of operating, and definitely that is something that is going to come through, and certainly in the larger cities. It's already happening in Dublin. And it's only a matter of time. Is it Galway as well? Yeah. So I can definitely see the benefits of that. 100%.
Excellent, David. We'll wrap it up there. We could talk all day, but thanks a million for joining me. Honestly, it was fantastic to chat to you, and I'm really looking forward to following your progress, and hopefully we can get you on again in a year or so.
Yeah. All right, thanks a million. And next time you're up in Sligo, we'll be chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Great, David. Talk to you soon.
All right, cheers, mate. Thanks.
Thanks for watching the Business of Restaurants podcast with me, Evan O'Cally. For new episodes every single week, subscribe below.